Rivers, we taking over!
Hi, sporting fans. It's here. Club Twilight is.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never,
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money, I know what you conniving, money,
money, never,
money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money, you can keep your conniving, money, when you've been a corrupt in a bill, tell me, money, now because your money done, you come with conniving, money, when you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me, money, now because your money done, you hustle for tell me, money,
yes, money, never,
money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money, now know what you conniving, money, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, that's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guild piece. A 2 pound note and a guild piece. A 2 pound note and a guild piece. This is all the money that me walk for.
I said money, never,
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money, now I know what you conniving, money.
oh, Joseph.
Ravens, we taking over!
Hi, sporting fans. It's here. Club Twilight is now open. Check us out on Sideline Dam, north side of the public road. All weekend, starting 6 o'clock this evening. 4 banks beer, $1,000. 5 GT beers, $1,000. Come and enjoy a spanking new and comfortable atmosphere. Popular music and popular DJs. Cutters on fleet. Yes, Club Twilight, your new entertainment zone. Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Come out and have a blast from 6 o'clock this evening. The weekend has started.
Ravens, we taking over! yourself and tell me morning.
Yes, morning neighbor.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I know what you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for.
I said morning neighbor.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I know what you conniving morning.
Oh, Joseph.
Ravens, we taking over!
Hi, sporting fans. It's here. Club Twilight is now open. Check us out on Sideline Dam, north side of the public road. All weekend, starting 6 o'clock this evening. 4 banks beer, $1,000. 5 GT beers, $1,000. Come and enjoy a spanking new and comfortable atmosphere. Popular music and popular DJs. Cutters on fleet. Yes, Club Twilight, your new entertainment zone. Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Come out and have a blast from 6 o'clock this evening. The weekend has started.
Ravens, we taking over!
We're not going to get that information. And yes, I'm coming on later than normal. But you know what? Like I say, sometimes you just have to let the message flow. Because it's an important message. And so those of you who want to hear the continuation of that discussion, you can go on to Kams TV at Facebook, of course, or YouTube, and you can listen to the dead live. Listen to the recorded version of the program, and you're going to hear all of the discourses there. Important enough, I had to let it run, because I'm sure there are viewers here who didn't listen to yesterday's broadcast, and that is why I do the replays. But quickly, let me address a couple of things before I invite Mr. Jordan. First and foremost, there was that press conference yesterday. I remember when Zacchaeus called yesterday, I attempted to point out to him that story about the African organizations not putting a football patch or basketball court here or there, really and truly is not where you would expect those organizations to focus, because it is not their area of operation. Let me call it that loosely, right? It is not where their focus is. I said in my discussion with Zacchaeus, these are cultural organizations. They're more concerned about helping people along and so on. And so when you listen to that press conference yesterday, I mean, who could put it better than the people who are directly involved? They made it clear, right? This is not a grant organization, a grant agency. So that grant that people were talking about, they only give out $300 and something thousand in grant from 5 billion, 5 million, 500 million and so on. At least they've debunked that foolishness. And they've pointed out either the wickedness of Jack Dio or the dunceness of Jack Dio. And I think Jack Dio was being deliberately dunce. Because they have explained for everyone, the grant that Jack Dio is talking about is a one-time $10 million grant that they were given, and it was disbursed over a period of 2 or 3 years. And that 300 and something thousand dollars that Jack Day was saying is the only grant they gave out was actually the last tranche, the last part of that grant. Good? And I'm going to say it here, and I'm going to say it without any apology, that a lot of times our people fall prey to the likes of Jack Dio, the mendaciousness of the likes of Jack Dio. Because our people simply do not try to seek information independently. They say, you want to hide information from a black man, put it in writing. You ain't gonna read. And sometimes I'm tempted to believe that. Good? Because everybody, a whole lot of people, let me don't say everybody, a whole lot of people rush into my inbox, call me on WhatsApp and all kind of thing. Is it true that these organizations were given $500 million and give out only $300,000 in grants? I remember referring some of them to Vincent Alexander's immediate response that he will sue Jack Dio. Right? And here it is, when you listen to the details of that press conference, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't take the time to listen to the press conference, so they're no the wiser. And that is why folks like myself have to take the time to explain these issues. And despite you explaining, I can still go away and say, hey, you trying to defend them. Yeah, them is the same thing. I have no fear. Because when I share links, I share links left, right, and center. Right? But we have to be fair to our leaders and our representatives. And we have to, in many instances, give them the benefit of the doubt, knowing who we're up against. So you had all the details in that press conference. It's on Kams TV page. So if you haven't seen it, make it your duty to go and listen to it. And so you will understand what's happening. And for those who continue to walk around and say, the coalition didn't do nothing for black people, I want you to also pay attention to when the first grant was given to APARTHEID, when APARTHEID was formed as a response to the United Nations Declaration of a Decade for People of African Descent. The first effort to establish that organization in response to the UN Declaration was made under the coalition government. And the first tranche of money was given under the coalition government. Good? And if you listen to what the organization has been doing in black communities, African Guyanese communities, then you can sit back and ask yourself again, is it true that the coalition didn't do anything for us? So all the contractors who were taught how to prepare their bid documents and so on, don't you think that will have long-term benefits to them? All our women and so on who are into food processing and so on, who were taught about packaging and labeling and food handling and the necessary documentation that is necessary and so on, don't you think it will have long-reaching impact for them? These are the things we have to analyze and really and truly ask ourselves if it is true that nothing was done for us. Many of us who say nothing was done for us are saying it from a personal point of view. We didn't get a cash handout. Every time they criticize the Granger government, they say they take away the $10,000. Now the PPP giving me $30,000. But what was replaced with the, what was the $10,000 replaced with? We have a problem. Unless we get money in our hands, we don't feel people are doing anything for us. Typical case in point, and a lot of you can identify with it. Many of you live in homes where you don't have to pay a rent because your father, or your mother, or your sister, or your brother paying a rent. And the simplest disagreement you get, you don't do nothing for me. You don't give me nothing. But imagine having to pay your own rent, and then you're going to understand what they do for you. Right? They're putting money in your hand, but they're also saving you spending money. But we don't recognize these things. Maybe because people don't break it down for us. And so let the night school, for example, that APARTHEID said, let me start back from the night school. The night schools that the coalition established across this country, so that school dropouts, who one might argue many look like us, could have gone back to school in the nights and educate themselves, single parents and so on. And child care centers were also established under the coalition government so that single mothers can leave their children and go to work knowing that they're well taken care of. As soon as the PPP came into office, they shut down all of them because they were in predominantly black communities. And even as I'm talking, I'm getting angry and emotional because these are things close to my heart. The night school and the child care centers were envisaged under the leadership of Aubrey Norton when he was perhaps youth advisor or something to Granger. So Norton again has, to a large extent, a history of looking out for black people, because he recognized how these things would benefit black communities, and they were established. And the PPP came into office and they shut them down, because black people mustn't find a way out. Right? And so APARTHEID as part of its funding, used part of its financing, despite the fact it's not a grant agency, it used part of its financing to assist in keeping the doors of, I think, 2 night schools open. One in Safari and one somewhere else. Right? And yet, you're going to hear, they get $500 million and they didn't do nothing for black people. And you're going to hear, the coalition didn't do nothing for black people. Right? These are the kind of things that we have to guard ourselves against. This one is a comical look
what they've done
to
with
some extent.
$500 million of taxpayers' money they've received, and how much
Who's calling me a
they've
wife?
utilized to give in the interest of ordinary
Good morning, how may I help you?
Guyanese in this country.
A few moments later.
Good morning. It's not a call yet.
4,310 business owners have been provided technical assistance through.
Okay, this is Mr. Amsterdam from Kams TV. I'm on a live program right now. I'll call you later if you would like me to. Okay, sure. Okay.
What?
Y'all listen to this one here.
Nearly $500 million of taxpayers' money they've received, and how much they've utilized to give in the interest of ordinary Afro-Guyanese in this country.
A few moments later.
4,310 business owners have been provided technical assistance through 4 one-stop business conferences, 10 mega family and business conferences held 2018, 2019, and January 2020 in regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. 1,017 small farmers participated in capacity building conferences with technical assistance provided by NARI, GLDA, SBB, Fisheries, New GMC, and the Co-op Department. 403 food vendors improved their food handling skills and learned about the importance of obtaining food handling certification, and also gained enhanced business practices and technical assistance from a series of conferences held for them. 33 small businesses assisted by a 2-day workshop in collaboration with ICA on costing, packaging, and marketing for micro and small business in preparation for the Ujamaa 2.0 exhibition and sale that you may have seen on Main Street on July 21st and 22nd. For youth, 46 youth participated in a 2.5-day long intense leadership training program. During COVID, 20 online programs entitled Spill the Facts were conducted weekly. They focused on capacity building, entrepreneurship training, African Guyanese and Guyanese history writ large. 32 young entrepreneurs promoted their their businesses during COVID. In December 2020, via a hybrid business expo, APARTHEID paid for video ads for each of the participating businesses so that they took away from this expo an ad that they can then use online or on television so that they could continue their businesses during COVID and beyond. $4,532,458 were spent in 21 and 2022 for an investathon for young entrepreneurs. They received mentoring in the run-up to the investathon to improve their business skills, improve their business plans as well, and in the end, the winning participants received awards for totaling $1,325,000. 650 youth have participated in our youth conferences. 77 graduates on how to submit successful bids. 232 applicants. Let me repeat that. 232 small contractors applied to APARTHEID when we put out our notice that we will be offering this training program online during COVID. We have so far held 6 sessions. We keep the sessions small so that they can have individual attention. And of that number, 77 persons have graduated. APARTHEID is not a grant agency. A single grant fund of 10 million Guyana dollars was provided by the Ministry of Finance in 2018. Funding was awarded as follows. In 2018, $8,911,254 was disbursed. In 2019, $896,043 were disbursed. And finally, in 2020, the remaining balance was awarded $343,773, accounting for the entire $10 million award that was given to us in 2018 by the then Ministry of Finance.
Well, I don't. Well, I don't.
Got him! Got him!
Good morning, Mr. Jordan. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, Kadaki. I'm like the weather, man. I'm like the weather. This weather just changed so suddenly, you know, and it's like me, just changed so suddenly.
So you're unpredictable?
This rain? Yeah?
You're an unpredictable one.
Yes, man. Yes. You know, we had all this heat wave all over the place, and then out of the blue, I saw this rain, you know. I don't know whether we get early Christmas rain or whether it's a passing phase.
No, it's the saving grace of the Creator. You realize that we couldn't stand the heat.
Well, that's good, you know. But I saw a video last night of Port of Spain, downtown Port of Spain. I don't know whether it was Corinth or not, but the place was so flooded. I saw a woman walking over to her car, knee deep in water. And I'm like, this is reminiscent somewhat of Georgetown when it rains a little too much, and we can't get the water, pump the water out immediately or immediately thereafter. You know, so we apparently sharing the same water blues with our island neighbors. But you know, when you look at that, we ask ourselves whether we are making the best use of fresh water. You know, in Guyana's case, we have devised no particular strategy beyond a couple of canals to trap this water. And in case of Port of Spain and so on, I don't know what they have done to trap this fresh water, because I was reading someplace where Mia, for example, was saying that the new oil is water and food. Right? It's not oil, it's water and food. And they were talking about the depletion of particularly water resources. And yet to have so much water in Port of Spain, fresh water from the rain, and they're waiting for it to drain off. And in Guyana's case, we are waiting to pump it back into the ocean. You know, and you know a number of places in Guyana that you have to fetch water still. Even right here in Georgetown. you know, they're using wells and all these kinds of things. So we not somewhere along the line we perhaps not taking as much opportunity as we should of this blessing, this particularly important natural resource called water. You know, so we shouldn't be complaining of the rain. Rather, we should say the rain is doing its job. We need to use all the engineering skills and so on that we have to trap more and more of this water, so that we could be in a better place down the road rather than having to dig wells and all this kind of thing. This is fresh water that we're pumping right back into a salty ocean. You know, what do you think, man?
Yeah, of course. We, I read not so long ago that while we're making a whole lot of noise about oil discovery and so on, water is more expensive than oil. And so, yes, it would make a lot of sense if we can find ways and means to utilize this fresh water. Because even the well water that we're getting, in many instances, the quality is not as good, or it is more expensive to purify it, to get the quality of the fresh water from rains, etc. I noticed somebody saying that this rainfall is the new moon. Right? Yes, I used to hear as a youngster growing up rain falling for moon. So Prince Odari is saying that it's the new moon rain. But yes, one of the things we and I dare say our leaders sometimes lack vision. We don't think forward. We don't think forward. We don't. We came and we met one system and we are prepared to live with that system until thy kingdom come. Right? And it's something I wanted to address a while ago in relation to, you remember when there was that horse race in Borbies? And people were trapped on the roads for 6 and 7 and 12 hours?
Yes, I was once trapped in such a traffic chaos a couple of years ago, and I vowed never to go ever again to any such event. I felt not only I felt fear because there you were in a crowded place.
An emergency developed your doom.
For hours.
Right? One of the things I reflected on when I saw that thing, there was a video a few weeks before that with Ali saying that why build 6 highways when the country only needs 4? Or something to that extent. I don't know if you saw that video when they were talking about him being approached to build a modern presidential complex and he refused and so on and so forth. One of the inserts was with him talking about, you have to develop, but you have to develop, I would say conservatively. Why build 6 highways when the country only needs 4? Well, I hope that experience with the horse race explained why you have to build more highways.
Well, you see, that goes to a whole, it's interesting because Ali claims a PhD in urban planning. And the issue here is, where is the studies that would have been done to inform a comment such as that? But I think that is for another discussion where we could look at this whole aspect of the lack of planning in light of such massive resources. And I am going to plead again for a national conversation on the use of these resources. As I said, we can't just, every time a government changes, to be coming and implementing fresh policies, ignoring your competitors or the previous government's initiatives and so on, abandoning them. We don't have the luxury. We are not the United States or whoever else that got massive resources and so on. We don't have that luxury of abandoning what our opponent did and so forth. And that is why, to avoid such situations, we should strive to have a kind of national development planning, a national development plan that will survive across governments. We can't afford to build a road here, and then when the government comes in, it doesn't maintain it because it wasn't built by them. You don't maintain Dublin Park because it wasn't built by you, but you allow it to collapse. You allow it to completely collapse, and then use it as a demonstration of what the government couldn't do before or did, right? $1 billion plus, or how much was sent into it? You don't do anything about it. Just because you want to spite or you want to show that the other government was inept or whatever the case may be. Scarce resources that we can't afford and we don't have, you know. So we have to strive manifestly to get a national development plan that cuts across, in particular, this whole issue of race and ethnicity, parties, and so on, so that irrespective of which party comes in, they will continue to, they may be tinker with it, given passage of time and so on, but substantially, it will exist as a national document that is under constant review and continues to get the blessing of the Parliament. You know, I remember back in the 90s, I think it was, when the government came in 92, and then they were given assistance by the Carter Center to put together a national development strategy. And this was used as their mantra, the blueprint. But I always tell people, because I was there, and I know what happened, that it was never really, well, first of all, it was written in several volumes. And like the Natural Resource Fund, where they say the formula was too complex. These volumes apparently were too complex for people to read, people in the government to read. So they used that as an excuse. Told Carter, these 5 volumes are too voluminous, you know, too much in there. So we wanted reduced to 1 volume. And they employed Dr. Kenneth King. I don't know if you remember Dr. Kenneth King. He was at one time General Secretary of the PNC. He was one time Minister of Economic Development. And it is under his stewardship that the FCH plan, the Feed Clothes and Houses plan, right, of the PNC government, you know, was developed and implemented. And then he left and he went, I think, to FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and so on. And then he came back, I think, was at the invitation of Desmond Hyde. I think he came back in 1990, I think it was 91 or thereabouts, to head up the ERP story. I think it's around 1991 or so that he came back there. And so they appointed Kenneth King, and I think they put together a secretariat, and the secretariat, I think that like Mavis Ben and so on, and they produced a 1-volume document. I think the 1-volume document was under 200 pages, and still, this document apparently they weren't too interested in. But as I indicated, one of the reasons why they weren't interested in that document was because there was since that time an indication that we should privatize sugar. And of course, you know, that would not go down well with the PVP government. But you can go back and you will see. Go back and see the 6 volumes and go back and see the 1 volume. There was in there one of the recommendations to privatize sugar. And that was the end of that national development strategy. And I don't know if you remember, if you're too young or it was not an area that you might be interested in, but it was, I think, Winston Murray who had introduced a motion in the Parliament to debate the national development strategy in this whole business of trying to get it into as a national document, right? After all, the national development strategy had over 200 people involved and consultation and all this kinds of story. So it came close to being a document that could have been classified as national. So Winston Murray, I think, moved a motion in it to get the document debated and then ultimately become a national document, correct? That the PNC could support and so on. Do you know? And this may stun you. This may stun you. That when it came to the vote on the document, the entire PPP in Parliament voted against their own document. Go check the records, you will see.
Interesting.
The entire PPP voted against the national development strategy that they developed.
Interesting.
This is no. You can go check the records. You can go check the Hansard at Parliament. You will see. Astonishing, astonishing. They developed this document, but then they turn around and put it against it. So we need in the context of this oil and massive oil resources and so on. We need a national development strategy that all sides can buy in. And it is a lasting document, as I said. You may tinker with it if a new government comes in and so on, but this should not be substantially different than what the country wants or sees the country moving towards. So unlike that document, and there seems to be, for a party that was speaking socialism, they seem to have an aversion to planning. Socialism and planning were two, went together, like any other two things you put together. But the government, the people always seem to have an aversion to planning. So here you have all these resources here. But you hear no one talking about a long-term plan as to where the country will go. So in that long-term plan, you will know whether you will have 6 highways or 4 highways, and you'll know where these highways will go to. Instead, in the absence of that, you have these things that you will see a modern Guyana, you will see the transformation of Guyana, all these different things. There is no plan that tells you that you need 10 or 15 more first-class hotels in Georgetown. Because all the hotels that they are putting in are within the boundaries of Georgetown, except the one that they have, the one that they have, the boundaries are close to, because they have one being built in the whole area, and that one being built at the airport. But the majority, the large majority of hotels, for example, are built within the confines of Georgetown.
And that is because they have the idea that Georgetown is Guyana. Many governments continue to make that mistake. They believe that, developing Georgetown is developing Guyana. They sit in Georgetown and they make all the decisions as though they are really making decisions in Guyana and so on. And as time goes by, you recognize the foolhardiness in this. Just as part of this same issue about continuity, one of the things which struck me last night, and I reflected on the same thing. Once it's not done by them, then it's not good enough to be maintained and to be kept and to, improved upon. With all these allegations being made against the Guyana police force and so on, and crime chief and head of major crimes and so on, I got an email last night showing me where Michel Caesar was removed from head of major crimes under the coalition government because certain allegations were made against him and investigated by the Police Service Commission and found to have merit. He was removed. But lo and behold, as the PPP took office, they brought him right back there. Right? Just because what? It's not we movie. Same thing they did with Branham. And I am referencing it because I think it's one of the easier things for citizens to recognize how these backwardness, as I would like to call them, affect their lives. Because here we are with major allegations of cover-ups and so on. People's children are being disappeared and so on and things. And people who are removed to prevent some of these things have been brought right back to those positions to perhaps continue doing them.
Yeah, well, this whole issue with continuity will continue to be of concern, particularly in all states, but particularly in states like us, where you have huge ethnic problems and where you have little resources. I mean, we could not withstand the fact that you have all these resources coming from oil and so on. The issue is if you don't plan carefully for the use of these resources, fickle as they are because they're oil resources, and we're not like Saudi Arabia or them who can control production and control oil and all these kinds of things. Right now, we are pumping like our head in goat to get what we think is a favorable price, and it is a favorable price, indeed. And another time we should be looking at issues in the oil sector, such as depletion policy and so on, that we seem to have. Now we do not have a depletion policy. So right now we're pumping oil as fast as we can, ostensibly for some 2040 story where you're going to have renewables and so on, or whatever reason. But we're pumping oil at the rate at which we're going without a depletion policy and without understanding the risks and so on that may be involved in that ramped up production. But continuity is important in all circumstances and societies and so on. And as I said, you don't continue something that is bad, that is true, but you don't discontinue something simply because you have other odious criteria, such as we didn't do it, or is not our race do it, or is not our party did it, and so on. And I was reading, I think it was last night, some interview with Ricky Singh. You remember Ricky Singh?
Yes.
Yes, I was reading an interview that he did, Kaicho News did with him, and one of the things he pointed to is that if Ali wants his one Guyana to really mean something, first of all he has to obviously flesh it out and define it, but he says he also has to involve the segments of the society, particularly the opposition, in the framing of it and in the implementation and so on of the project. Because it's exactly...
Guyana Water Inc.
It goes without saying. It goes without saying. You will not be able to develop Guyana by marginalizing a major sector of the society. You will not. And we have gone through this. We have gone through this before independence and certainly post-independence to date. And who's the sufferers? The people of Guyana. We can't continue to say we have all these resources, and Guyana is blessed with natural resources, not as blessed with human, but even the few humans that we have, many of them are smart, literate, and all these kinds of things. And yet we can't put these together. We can't put these together to have a society of which all of us can be proud. And every so often we have these flare up, and as we go along the place, we have these flashpoints that can flare up. And I don't understand why any rational person, right, and that may be using the word, very sanely, why we don't have rational people could see this, and begin to lower the temperature in the society by bringing all factions together at the table and trying to map out a one people, one nation, one destiny. Okay, rather than imposing another one Guyana and so on. Because one Guyana is implied in one people, one nation, one destiny. So I don't see why you need to go there and confuse and so forth. So that by the way of what you allowed me to open up with, I wanted to comment on. I wanted to say first of all that I thought your program yesterday and the repeat this morning in terms of the issue with APARTHEID was fantastic, and I hope, as you said, people will go and listen to exactly what is taking place in Guyana and what portends in this country. Post August 2nd, 2020, you see evolving a situation, okay, led by narratives and pushed by certain people in the government about a race called African guidance. You will feel that this race called African guidance and its leadership have done something akin to the slaying of Jesus Christ. You would believe that. You would believe that this place called African Hinds, came, met people and sponged on their efforts, and we laid back as kings and so on, while we were reaping the benefits of others. You will believe that African Hinds don't belong to this country called Guyana. And that narrative is being pushed by all sides in all corners. And the narrative seems to gain traction, particularly in areas where perhaps over the 23 years, 1992 to 2015, it was characterized by any number of incidents and activities that would have set back perhaps all races, but particularly African Guyana. And I speak here about things like earning capacity, education, health, security, and all these different things. And a race that was once proud, I say once proud, of their achievements and so forth, and of their revolutionary fervor and so on, that would have brought about Guyana and brought about the end of slavery, brought about independence and all these kinds of story, is now seem to be cowering under the onslaught of this new paradigm of the African Guyanese and its leaders. And to all of this, the African proverb came to mind. The African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. There are other variants of it, but essentially what it means is that until the oppressed people learn how to write, learn how to read, learn how to communicate, the world will never know their viewpoint. And why I say that? I say that in relation to APARTHEID. Why did it take the onslaught by DION for APARTHEID to come out and say all that they said yesterday to give the nation a better understanding of what they were doing? Why did it take? Why do we have to react? Why do we have to constantly react instead of being the promoters of? As I listened to APARTHEID yesterday, putting out all of those works that they did, I'm saying to myself, they have made the same, or they had the same problems that the coalition generally had, which is a PR that didn't do what it was supposed to do. PR, public relations. We had that problem. It's not that we didn't try, not that we didn't try, but I think the general consensus was that our PR was not great. And maybe or maybe not, it wasn't. But the general consensus is that it wasn't great compared to others that they have. And as I said, so much was learned yesterday from the APARTHEID. So much was learned. You know, all the different things that they were doing. And I am saying to them, don't stop there. Don't stop there. Now you have learned your lesson. Now be proactive in terms of what you do. And don't let the distractions continue as to how the people who are employed, who get the work and all. These are distractions. These are distractions. You have done quality work in the African community, and that's what you were supposed to do. You have been set up on behalf of but they continue to allow their narrative to be written by somebody else before they could come out. And they are not in the hunted capacity. They can read, they can write, but apparently they can't communicate. So we make a big meal about less than $500 million given over 4 or 5 years. In a situation where the United Nations were good enough to provide a whole decade for people of African descent, given what they went through. A whole decade that started in 2014 and should end in 2024. But like I said last week, Ms. Thompson had indicated that the decade now, instead of a decade, the UN apparently has now extended it in perpetuity, right? So the 2024 is no longer the cutoff date. But just sticking to the decade, started in 2014 under the Ramatar administration. In 2014, when this decade started, what did the Ramatar administration do in terms of establishing APARTHEID and financing it? Did they get any money from them? No. Did they get any money in 2015? No. As they indicated, the first monies they got after the APARTHEID, I think, was set up in 2017, they got $68 million in 2018. They got $68 million in 2018. And of that money, they obviously would have had to get headquarters and whatnot. Then indeed, they came to the cabinet and made certain representations. And they were given $100 million in 2019. And here again, you're talking a government that was under serious pressure with the Gaisukos and so on. And I'll come back to them just now. But we were able to up their monies to $100 million in 2019. Apparently, they were given $100 million in 2020. Another $100 million, I think, in 2021. And $100 million, I believe, is budgeted in 2022. So that will make it $468 million in 5 years. Less than $100 million per year in the period that they were given. And considerably less, it will mean that at the end of 2022, 8 years of the decade would have gone. And they would have got only $468 million in those 8 years.
And approximate $50 million a year.
That is correct. Less than what the office of the First Lady has got annually over the last 3 years. Let us be realistic. Let us be realistic and stark. But again, as I said, if the lion doesn't want to, until he learns to read and write and communicate, somebody else is going to push the narrative. And as you have indicated, because our education level, our education standard have dropped considerably relative to our education level, and I'm talking here about African diamonds, have dropped considerably as far as I'm concerned, compared to the achievements of the 60s and the 70s, and even the 80s. We have now become brain. Easy brain. We no longer seem to have the capacity to read even basic books. I don't know about you, but I grew up on Hardy Boys, comic books, and
even Enid Blyton I read by. All them girl books I read.
Right? Enid Enid Blyton, and all these things. I grew up on reading the national newspapers from a very early age. Of course, back in those days, you had quality journalists. Carl Blackman, Mentis, Ricky Singh, Mohammed Amaluddin had quality journalists. You could read a newspaper. I mean, today, I don't read newspaper. I read whatever they got online for two of the newspapers, Kaito News and Stabuk News. You know, but even there, the quality of journalism, you know, leaves. But they're the two outliers there. But even there, the quality of the journalism leaves a lot to be desired. And some of the wrong English I see, you know, problems with syntax and all these different things, grammar, you know, for subject form, you know, relationship and so on. But having said that, you know, they do we call a decent job. But reading newspapers was a required reading as a little child. After your parents finished reading the papers when it's almost white, it was your turn to read.
Yeah, some of us used to go and look for the puzzles.
Yes.
Yeah, those mailing puzzles. Can't even remember the name right now.
Yeah, and not only read by yourself, but you had to read to one of your parents. You had to read to them, and if you're stumbling and so on, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. So all of that's gone. All of that's gone. The family structure that you had that raised the child, and that family included the neighbors, all that gone too. That gone too. You know, so the whole set of circumstances have now combined, all right, to put severe pressure on the African Guyanese. So where before they were a pretty literate group combined, now the literacy is kind of sectionalized. And I've met innumerable number of people who cannot still read, who have difficulties writing, and numeracy, of course, that's somewhere else. These are not aberrations and so on. This now is becoming like the norm. And we're talking about even people in school, in the school system, because you know, outside of the big five or the big 10 or whatever the case, once they go down to these community schools and junior secondaries and so on, for the most part, I'm saying everybody, for the most part, is that they're lost in that setting. Okay, nobody fails anymore, so you do little or nothing and you get promoted to farm 2, you get promoted to farm 3.
No child left behind.
Yeah?
No child left behind.
Yes, exactly. And before you know it, you're in farm 5 and you still can't read. You could barely write. Okay? And you come out to school, there's no job waiting for you because there's no job market that take you in that condition. You know. But that's for another session because it will take up this whole thing. But if you come back to the apology, I said, I like the fact that they responded. And for me, timeliness of response is important as the response itself.
Very well.
Because Daniel had been making these comments well before the day before this press conference that they held. And even as I remembered it when we had our thing at BUXTON, I had called on the apology to do the baseline study of the status of African Guyanese. And 2 days afterwards, I'm getting this call from the apology, Ms. Armstrong, indicating that they actually had started such a study. Now, if I knew that they had started such a study,
you would not have.
Were I aware, would I have gone there and asked that such a study be done?
Good. The other thing,
Yeah?
sorry, the other thing of import in relation to that study, I I want persons to pay attention to the other study which they had to do, right? And I knew of that study because we had gotten involved in the incident. When they were giving out those cash grants or flooding grants and so on and so forth in Berbice, East Berbice, a number of communities had complained that they weren't getting any. They were skipping them. They were giving to the Indian communities and skipping the black communities and so on. And David Hinds and I, Dr. Hinds and I had started inquiring into those things. And then we learned that APARTHEID was actually conducting a survey in those areas to determine who lost what was the value of their losses, and submitting the results of that survey to the Ministry of Agriculture, right? In an effort to have the wrong righted. That was mentioned yesterday at the press conference. And despite the fact that APARTHEID spent millions of dollars, based on what I remember them saying, to do that study and submit that data to the Ministry of Agriculture, a lot of those farmers and so on and persons who suffered losses have still not been compensated, right? And so these are things that we ought to fail not to highlight, especially if we're talking about an arising apartheid state. And like you rightly said, we have heard of no press conference to announce that this study was going to be done. This survey is being done, right? So, like you're saying, PR plays a big part. And it's one of the things in this society, a lot of people don't put value to PR. They see it as just talk. Yeah, Mike, sir.
That is true. They say, but, so I'm hoping the lesson has been learned and that they don't just go back now into their shell thinking that they have done a good job yesterday in holding the press conference and then gone back in their shell. Because even the press conference that they held yesterday, even there, I think they can build upon it. Not necessarily with subsequent press conferences, but perhaps press releases and so on, in which the very activities and programs and projects that they highlighted yesterday, if they can put now the granular details, go down into it, okay? We assisted 1,000 farmers, or let me do the one that I know, a number of manufacturers and so on for the UJAMA. Okay, if that was a project, then say the project was for the mentoring of people to participate in UJAMA. Okay, materials was so much, labor costs in terms of the people who you have to bring in was so much. This was so much, place was so much, and therefore this project was $2 million.
You know what would also be impacting? For them to bring the group together and showcase the group again, because they did it in the Avenue, but now let's bring them together as a response to these claims by Jack Dio, right?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
But one of the things I fear is that members of the African Guyanese community live in so much fear that they're going to tell you they're frightened. They're going to turn up despite the fact that they got a benefit.
But not only them, Blackie. That is why I continue to quote the African proverb. It is not only that is a small part, a microcosm of the general malaise that we have. When you look and see, for example, who write letters to the press, they have this thing about putting some letters with black names in it. And very often, these names appear to be contrived based on what they write and so on. Okay? But our people don't write. They don't write. They don't respond. They don't respond. Everybody fall into this thing about, oh, the coalition didn't do anything. They buy into this narrative. They don't do anything. So that is the narrative that keeps going out there. That is the narrative that keeps going out there. When there is a response, sometimes there's a response that like it's forced and so on. So it's not only APARTHEID. APARTHEID might be a microcosm of the general problem. might be that Michael got the general and the beneficiaries. Well, that is another story too. That is another story that you rightly said. They are afraid to come about because you remember back, I think it was last year or so on, when a poor lady was given a house lot. But then she went on the, she was seen on the picket, you remember?
Yes.
And then she was given a rude awakening, a assault and all this kind of story.
Uh-huh.
And I don't even know if they take back the poor piece of land that they gave her. So indeed there is general fear. But if the hunter succeeds in putting fear in a lion who is supposed to be fearless, can you imagine what will happen to the jungle? Can you imagine what will happen to the jungle? The jungle will become extinct. Because the lion is supposed to be the most fearless of them in the jungle. So yes, I agree that people are fearful and so on. But that is all part of the subjugation. I mean, remaining silent is not going to improve your socio-economic condition. Some indeed will have the benefits of that, but the large masses would not. Remaining silent is one reason why you will get a football in one community and $80 million in another community that you hardly even know where to find it on the Guyana map. That is what is going to happen about remaining silent and the lack of advocacy. No one here is advocating any violence or any sort of thing. But God gave us a mouth, and we have to advocate. We have to advocate.
Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder. The young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because He hath set His love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never,
Money, never, money, money, never, money, money, I know what you can even money.
money never,
Money, never, money, money, never, money, money, you can keep your conniving money. When you been a corrupt in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money.
yes, money never,
Money, never, money, money, never, money, money, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for.
I said money, neighbor,
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money.
oh Joseph.
Ravens, we taking over.
Hi, sporting fans. It's here. Club Twilight is now open. Check us out on Sideline Dam, north side of the public road. All weekend, starting 6 o'clock this evening. 4 banks beer, $1,000. 5 GT beers, $1,000. Come and enjoy a spanking new and comfortable atmosphere. Popular music and popular DJs. Cutters on fleet. Yes, Club Twilight, your new entertainment zone. Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Come out and have a blast from 6 o'clock this evening. The weekend has started.
Ravens, we taking over.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money.
money, never
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money.
yes, money, never
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Are you share the life? Thank you, Joel Ward. Share the life, Robert John. What's happening? Claudia Bovel Lewis, what's happening? Desiree Emmanuel, morning. Morning, are you morning? Hey, Albert Morgan, we're going to Borby's by. Morning, morning. Albert, give me some lime there. When you squeeze one of them, you get half-gallon juice from them. Half-gallon juice from one lime. Hey, hey. You think King Lion get anything on me? Hey, morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is 7 hours 18 on the 24th day of August in the year 2022. Yes, share the live. Share the live. That's what I'm encouraging you to do this morning. Share the live. Listen, we ain't even there at half a billion yet, and I want to talk to 1 billion people this morning. So you need to take it up. Start sharing. If each of you should share to 20 persons, we're going to get to that 1 billion. Start sharing, please and thanks. Share. Let's have some music, man. Sometimes we use music as a way of getting the message out. This morning, the message could be nothing else than black like a tar. You gotta be black like a tar. Richie Spice said that, eh? Black like a tar. You gotta embrace your blackness. Because we're talking about apartheid this morning. Black like a tar. Share the live. Share the live. Please and thanks. Share the live.
Black like a tar. Black, I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. Black like a tar. Black, I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, you have to know who you are. Them say, when you see black bus, you fit turn back. Them say, nothing good never come out of black. Kick like a spot, I say into black. But my complexion, me say me know it come black. I'm proud to be black, I'm a black to be proud. Marcus can't be lead out 10 million black. I'm black to be proud, I'm proud to be black. So if you with me, won't you shout it out loud? Boy, black like a tar. Black, I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. Black like a tar. Black, I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. Some bleach out them skin and think them out the win. Some bleach out them skin until it get thin. Some bleach out them skin, see that them can't hear the king. Now from your bleach out your skin, boy, your sin. Boy, I'm a true Rasta man. Listen to songs that I sing. I'm a true Rasta man, and me Babylon can't trim. I'm a true Rasta man, smoking me herb doing me thing. So Babylon is with the fire where they are fling. Boy, black like a tar. Black, I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. Black like a tar. Black and I'm proud you better know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. I'll never betray my brother. No. Malcolm X come and teach the masses. Yeah. He said you better know yourself, be yourself, never be another one. So how could I man come betray? Yeah. I am who I am. Black like a tar. Black and I'm proud you have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every black superstar. Black like a tar. Black and I'm proud I have to know who you are. Black like a tar. Africa is the motherland, big up every ghetto.
Other banks go out of their way to make redeeming credit card rewards needlessly complicated. But Discover isn't like that. With Discover, you can redeem your rewards.
Black like a tar. Morning again, morning. Now you welcome to the program. Let me tell you something this morning. You see when I lose it on the program in the morning, some people that say lose it, some people that say don't lose it. Others say to block them, others say not to block them. My quarrel usually with folks who come on the program and talk crap is the fact that they allow themselves to be used, abused and misled by the PPP propaganda machinery. Yeah. So sometimes you gotta take your time, you gotta take time out to hurt their feelings. And when you hurt their feelings, then in some instances they come to themselves and they ask themselves, why is this man so aggressive? Why is he hurting my feelings like this? One of them jumped in my inbox yesterday. Oh, Lord. Right? She have found out at some point in time that I don't keep secrets from viewers. I tell it as it is. One of them jumped in my inbox yesterday to WhatsApp me and ask me why I am so aggressive. Why I just abuse out people like that. Like I want to share yes men on my program. I took my time with him. And I sent him to do his research. And he did his research. And he returned like a good student. And he said, Mr. Amsterdam, I learned so much. I didn't know of all of this. And now that I've learned, I owe you and your viewers an apology. I ain't gonna call his name because I don't know if you would like me to out him like that. But Because sometimes he getting paid to do what he has been doing, you know. And so quietly he is repentant. But then he still got to earn his bread. So I'm not going to out him just yet. But I'm happy that he went and he did his research. And that is what I encourage a lot of you to do. Don't listen to what people say only. Go do your independent research. And so when you speak, you know you're speaking from a position of knowledge. You're not just parroting something that one of the most corrupt beings in this country says. Right? You're not just parroting Barrett Jack Dio or Anil Nandlal or the fat guy. You're not just parroting them. You speak from a position of knowledge. And you will be respected for that. I always say to you, you can fact check me when I talk, you know. When I'm on this program, you can fact check me. I'm human, I will err sometimes. But I'm willing to put my head on a block. You'll find me wanting to steady, you know. I understand BASCOM is back at work. DION BASCOM. And the fear is that there is no protection for him while he's at work. You know, my belief is that's the right place for him. I would be happy if they put him on desk duty. Because once he's on desk duty, then let somebody kill him in the custody of the police. As if it makes sense. While he's on desk duty, he doesn't have to go in harm's way. He's protected. That's my belief. I'm entitled to that. I don't know how you see it. But I think that is where he should be on desk duty. So they don't send him out. And he should be smart enough not to want to go out on any patrol or anything. Because a stray bullet might got his name. But once he is in the office of the police, his place of work, it's likely that he is safer there than even at home. That's my reasoning. Good. I also received information that suggests that the police will be making moves to charge him tomorrow and place him before the courts. As some people say, hell shall freeze over for Guyanese to allow that to happen. Guyanese are going to be too stupid to allow the police to charge DION BASCOM and put him before the court, before this commission of inquiry begins. They're too stupid to hear the fat guy announce that he's going to bring the RSS to investigate, and we have stayed quiet so far. The RSS is a fifth wheel to coach as far as I'm concerned when it comes to these matters. The RSS was brought here to investigate the murder of Isaiah and Joel Henry. And they left frustrated because there was no cooperation. The government didn't want them to find anything. And so the government know who the muck is. They know the muck. And so they're going to bring the book again. They're going to bring the muck again. Monkey know which limb to jump on. And so this monkey government keep jumping on RSS because the RSS ain't got no teeth. And Guyana should be insisting by taking to the streets that the FBI or RCMP or Scotland Yard be invited to lead this investigation. I maintain that. And I also maintain that the likes of Hicken and Caesar and Blanham and other top officers of the Guyana Police Force ought to have been at home already on admin leave. For as long as they remain there, they give the opportunity to tamper with evidence, and that is happening. There's no question about that. It is Wednesday morning anyways. So almost 7:30. The doctor is in the house. Dr. Hinds, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning to you and your viewers. And thanks for having me again.
I hope you had a good weekend. And I hope I'm not about to spoil your peace. Because I want us to talk about the rising apartheid in Guyana. That conference, that symposium, which was supposed to be happening last weekend, hosted by hosted by Coffee 250, and it was subsequently postponed to this weekend, next weekend that is, because of some epistle Anil Nandlal wrote in the media. And as I say, the entire PR machinery of the PPP came out to attack persons associated with the proposed conference because of the topic, and had almost everybody pulling in their shells leading to the rescheduling of this conference. Why the attack on the Coffee 250 for being bold enough to want to discuss the rising apartheid state?
Well, before I answer the question, I don't know what you meant by everybody pulling in their shells. I don't know what you quite mean by that.
Well, let me explain what I mean by that. It is my opinion that come hell or high water, the conference should have stopped its date and it should have been held. But the organizers chose to listen to Anil perhaps and postponed it.
Well, I don't think you listened to, did you read the statement by Coffee 250? Coffee 250 put out a statement.
I listened to Nigga Key at the APARTHEID press conference. Anyways, you can educate the public about the statement.
Well, I mean, Coffee 250 put out a statement which was carried in the newspapers. And the conference on the state of the African Guyanese, an annual conference that we've been doing since 2013, is on this coming weekend. And we explained why we pushed the conference to the coming weekend. As you said, the theme of the conference this year is confronting the emerging apartheid regime. And the title touched a nerve in the government, and where the government legal advisor and one of its leading members took to the newspaper to make the argument that Guyana is not legally an apartheid state. And that Coffee 250 may be violating the Racial Hostilities Act. This is the legal advisor of the government. It's not a little ordinary person. It's the person representing the state of this country. And Coffee 250, which invited people to participate in the conference, has a duty to protect those people. Hence the postponement, because they are presenters at the conference who are not WP, are Coffee 250 members. They're not Coffee 250 members. Some of them are young people. And so Coffee 250 has a responsibility to protect those citizens. Hence, we agreed to consult with our lawyers on whether the government was attacking the right to free speech, whether we were on solid ground in terms of what we proposed to the conference. Hence, the postponement by a week.
Acknowledged. Now to the meat of the matter. The question is, why the attack? Why do you believe, or what might be the intentions of the PPP to bring out its entire PR machinery to attack this proposed symposium?
Because the symposium hits them where it hurts most. Most. I've been saying that on this program forever. You know you're winning, not only on Victory Day. You know you're winning when your target responds in a vehement way to what you're doing. They not only brought out the machinery, the other machinery. If that were so, it wouldn't be that bad. They proceeded to attack presenters at the forum. They proceeded to attack APARTHEID and demanded APARTHEID provide documents to show that APARTHEID members not thieving government money. That APARTHEID, who they think are financing this program by Coffee 250. So they went more than just bringing out the PR machine. You see, if you say a government is corrupt, you know, they will be concerned, very concerned. But they know that they're not going to lose a vote. They know that the opposition will cry and then people will go on with their lives. That corruption, while it's an important target, while it's a big sin, that there is a way in which you can wriggle your way around it. They know, the scandal in the police force, including the one that is going to, yes, it's going to dent their credibility. It's going to expose them and so forth. But they know that they can pretend that they have nothing to do with the corruption. But when it comes to racial oppression, when it comes to racial discrimination, they know that they cannot hide anywhere. Because one, it's an international issue. The United Nations didn't grant a decade for the people of African descent because they're joking around. They assumed and they concluded that African people are still the victims of racism around the world. So the international community has accepted that racism is real. And they know in Guyana that the PPP government, which has been practicing racism since 1992, institutional racism, they know now that all eyes are on them. They know that our people, African people, are now racially literate in a way that they weren't before. They know that every day on these programs, we are removing the mask that governments put on when they're practicing racism. They're sensitive to all other issues of which they're vulnerable. I'm not saying they're not sensitive, but the one that they're most sensitive to is the question of race. Because you see, in societies like ours, people respond to three things. They respond to the threat of dispossession, when you're dispossessing them of land and other resources, people respond to those things. Those things, that is one of the causes of ethnic conflict. A second cause of ethnic conflict is the threat or the actuality of disenfranchisement, denying people the right to vote. And finally, people respond to the threat to their honor, their dignity, the dignity of the group. And if you look at Guyana, you will see African Guyanese are being dispossessed every day of the national patrimony. In addition to the fact that the PPP is intent on going to elections with a bad voters list and to manipulate the election. So people are very attuned to that threat of disenfranchisement, a vote. And then finally, Black people have come to the point where our very honor and our very dignity as a people, coming to us with hampers and in a sense making us look like slaves again. The PPP knows that those three things combined is hell for them. You cannot govern a country effectively. You cannot sustain what you're doing in the presence of those three things. And so the scampering around to give people a little handout there and a little handout there is meant really to keep Black people in check. To say to Black people, everything is all right with you all. You all are not being dispossessed or disenfranchised or dishonored. No, everything is all right. And so it is in effect a war between the PPP and those of us who are on this side of the fence exposing what they're doing. They attacked me and they say that I have anointed myself a leader of Buxton and the African Guyanese people. And they're damn right. They want to choose our leaders. It's not accident what they're doing. And one of the weakness on our side is they know that our leaders are afraid to call them out on race. I've been saying over and over on this program and other programs. When we go to talk with race and we talk with folk tongue, the PPP is laughing at the bank. When we say African Guyanese are being oppressed, and then we go on to say, but poor Indian people are oppressed too, the PPP loves that. When we say that African Guyanese are oppressed, period, that's when they get antsy. And what Coffee 250 has done, it has taken the charge of racism to another level. Because in the 20th century, the three most extreme forms of racism were apartheid in South Africa, segregation in the United States of America, and Nazism in Germany. And no government want to be compared with those three. And when we in Coffee 250 decided, look, this thing is apartheid, and we're going to call it like it is, and we're going to stick our neck out there, they realize where the struggle is now being taken to another level. Hence, the response, the extreme response. So, This weekend, nobody, as you said, pull in or whatever. This weekend we scored a big victory. This weekend, African Guyanese and the opposition scored a big victory because Coffee 250 touched the PPP where it didn't want to go. That is what happened this weekend. They keep saying over and over again, things happen. Struggle is an ongoing thing, and you have to be keen to understand when you win. And it's one of the weaknesses of analysis on our side. It's one of the weaknesses of leadership, is that we are not keen enough, so we don't seize the time. There are other reasons, tactical reasons, that Coffee 250 decided to hold off for a week. Our numbers in the conference are going to go up by 50 times. People now know who's Coffee 250. People now know that there is a big conference coming up that the PPP don't want. People now know about apartheid Guyana. It's now all over the world. Oh, it's all over the world. One more week of mobilization. When you win in, my brother, you have to have your eye on the prize. Because your winning is not just by what you do. It's by how the other side respond to what you do. When we talk about apartheid, emerging apartheid, it means that the process is going. There is apartheid already. So when Anil talks about the law is not apartheid, he forgets he alone went to law, that he alone went to law school. There is apartheid by law. That's what happened in South Africa. And then there is apartheid by practice. That is, the laws did not say this as an apartheid state. But the practice of the government, the practice of the state is that of apartheid. It's called de facto apartheid. So now Anil is arguing there is no de jure apartheid. Hence there is no apartheid, but we got used to it. Black people send their children to school. And we know how apartheid operates. And we know that there is de facto and de jure. So when he played right in the letter, he forgot that black people, whatever happened to us, that black right on we side. So, oh, what a week it has been. Oh, what a week it has been. Some of us knew that that was their soft underbelly. That's why we kept hammering them. 2 weeks ago, I said, I'll torment you. And that is why they are saying everything David Hinds said is race, race, race. David Hinds would like to talk about many other things because he knows about many other things. But he talks about race every day because that is their weak underbelly. And they exposed it this week. What a victory this week.
What a victory it has been. And well, we did mention the attack on Vincent Alexander and Coffee 250 and APARTHEID. Vincent said he has been the target of Jack Deal for more than a year. Vincent is also one of the serving members of the Guyana Elections Commission. Do you believe there's a nexus?
No, that's not for us to develop nexus. Let them develop their nexus. There are a few of us, they know, the PPP knows, that people like Vincent and Nigel Hughes and David Hinds and Henry Jeffrey, that we have not over the years been afraid to talk about race in an open way. They know that. The Rafidev group have tried to over the years, to engage us to talk about race. Because they understand that when you come to party leaders tend to be very careful about race. Because a party is looking for votes, a party doesn't want to offend anybody, and so forth. But they know that the few of us are not looking for votes. And so we are able to discuss race in an open way. And they tried to shut us up by calling us racist. But that hasn't worked. So they tried to say they will lock us up because people like Rickford and yourself and Mark Benchop and others have begun to talk about race in a more open way. So they notice that we are getting more and more black commentators and black public people to begin to talk about race. Amanza talked about race, and you all see the body slammer. They body slammer. But Amanza belonged to a political party. They have not been able to body slam Vincent and people like myself and so on. And so therefore, they decided to attack us in other ways, to try to lock us up, to say Vincent thief money, using public money and so on. Those are the ways they're trying to cite, because their intention is that no African Guyanese leader must talk about race and talk about people's oppression. That's their intention. Their intention was to chase people away from the conference. That was their intention.
I read it also as an effort of the PPP to drive a wedge between African Guyanese leaders and the supporters, followers, African Guyanese on the whole, because especially that this we're soon going to be perhaps confronting the matter of elections and a clean voters list, and you need a solid block to really perhaps, let's say, protest and put the PPP in a corner to give the people a new voters list. I see these attacks also, at least I read them to mean that they're trying to put that wedge in between African Guyanese leaders and the communities.
Well, you're right. It's not just on the level of election, at the level of the struggle to remove them from office. You need more unity among our leadership. And you know that if there is unity among our leadership, there is likely to be more unity among our followership. Because our people follow leaders, they follow parties. And if the leaders and the parties are picked apart, then the followers will be picked apart, and you wouldn't have a united struggle. And the more the struggle is united, the more effective it will be. And so they have always tried hard. When they attack me every day and say, oh, WP is dead, nobody listens to David Hinds. They know damn well that people listen to me. But what they're trying to do is to say David Hinds and Vincent Alexander, they're something is wrong with them. They're extreme. They want violence. They want this. And so to say to black people, oh, those are not the leaders you should follow. They know very well. They don't attack us because they just want to attack us. They attack us because they know the impact that we are likely to have on the followers, right? Because the followers don't have to bother about voting when they listen to us. When they listen to us, we give them information, we give them education, we take them behind what is happening. And so they are deathly afraid of that. Governments worked out what to do with political parties. Because when they look across the aisle, they know that the electoral party wants to get where they are. And insofar as you confine the electoral party to parliament and you confine them to politically correct politics, you're good to go as a government. But there are always what they call outliers, meaning people like us, who are there to push the political party to take more progressive positions. And that is why they fear Vincent Alexander. They fear Nigel Hughes, David Hinds, Henry Jeffrey. Because we are, in a sense, in these progressive positions directly to the masses of people. And the masses of people will then push their political party to take progressive positions. For us to get to the point that you were talking about, where we have a united action. Look, they're concerned at that rally at Burnham Court. It was not the fact that we had a rally. It was the fact that it was a rally that was held by the PPP, the PNC, the AFC, and the WPA. That was their big concern. That is why they send their drones and they listen to all the messages and so on. Because they know that you're going to have 3 different messages at that rally. You're going to have the AFC message, you're going to have the PNC message, and you're going to have a radical WPA message. And drives the daylight of fear in them. So you are quite correct. The wedge, if you can drive a wedge by saying to the PNC, don't worry, the WPA, they don't bring anything to the table. And some PNC people repeat it. The PPP go laugh to the bank. Because what it means is that the viewpoints of Kidaki Amsterdam, and Ogunse, C.Y. Thomas, Desmond Trotman, and David Hinds are kept off the main stage. Because that rally would have been viewed by people all over the world, by embassies. And insofar as you can get the PNC standing there by itself, and the PNC giving its partisan electoral message, you're fine. You don't want the WPA message that we're going to begin to break your backbone here tonight. You don't want to hear that, right? So when you merge the AFC, PNC, and WPA message, and now the Black organizations, led by 1st of August movement and Society for the African Guyanese Empowerment in Buxton, because we set the train in Buxton on the night of the 31st, and then at our symposium. And now Coffee 50 comes now and said, what we've been saying all the time is apartheid.
But while we are saying apartheid, the PPP and the supporters are saying, what kind of apartheid you are talking about? We got several black ministers of government. We've just given a black man license to open a merchant bank.
Have we not dealt with that on this program and several programs before? Our target is not PPP members. Our target is our people. As you just said, it's our people that are trying to drive a wedge in between. So our message is directed at our people.
But I'm asking because there's some of our people, who are buying into that.
There are always going to be a minority of people. Don't we have Indian Guyanese supporters on the opposition side? So what if there are a handful of black supporters on the PPP side? We are not defined by our 1%. We define ourselves by our 99%. Do you think a couple of black ministers changes that there is an apartheid state? In South Africa during apartheid, They were what you call the settlements, and they set up leaders like Buthelezi and others who were accommodationists to apartheid. That didn't stop the struggle against apartheid. So we should not be defined by the few of us who are enticed by whatever we are enticed by. We define ourselves by our 99%.
Very well. I read yesterday someone making the comment that, listen, while we are talking about apartheid, this young generation has no idea what we're talking about. Would you spare a few minutes to drive home, if I can say, the evidence of apartheid in this country?
No, I won't spend my time. I've been doing that for the last 2 years, Kidaki. To ask me to do that this morning is really taking up time that we can take up. We should be taking up to talk about where we are now. We know why it's an apartheid state. The PPP didn't come out swinging. If they believe what they're saying, that young people don't know it's apartheid, they know that young people believe. But they know that young people come at issues from their own standpoint of being young. You know, you hear about young and restless, young and revolutionary, young and militant. Well, the PPP believe that black young people are young and stupid. That's all they're trying to say. But they don't understand black people. They don't. It's one of the things about living in these societies is that we do not take the time to understand our opposite groups. You look at all the Indian Guyanese commentators about that. They're talking as Indian Guyanese who are analyzing the black condition. They are not getting in to the African Guyanese mind. They're not getting in to what makes African Guyanese tick. What a few of them do. GHK Lal, for example, he does. Some of the WPA Indians do, some of the PNC Indians do. They try to understand where black people are coming from. But the vast majority of Indian Guyanese commentators, they are assessing the African condition through their Indian lens. It's like the slave masters who used to assume that the slaves are happy. And used to tell the slaves, why are you all having slave rebellions? Aren't you all happy? You're being fed. You don't have to pay taxes. Aren't you happy? In the 1930s, when the riots took place, the British sent a commission of inquiry down to the Caribbean. And the commission came, visited, and went back and said those people want their freedom. No, if you enslave people for 200 and something years, and you colonize them for another 150 years, common sense should tell you that when those people rise up, they're rising up because they want freedom from bondage. But the fact that you have to send a commission, it means that you really think that these people don't know that they're in bondage. They should be happy. Why the hell are they rising up? That's what PPP is doing. When they say young people have moved on and they're not listening to people like David Hinds and Vincent, what they're saying is that young people are accepting their racial oppression. That's what they're saying. That they're not different from the slave masters. They're not different from the colonials. In order for apartheid and slavery and indentureship and colonialism to work, You have to convince the people that their oppression is in their interest, so that they will not rise up and overthrow. And that's what the PPP is doing. And that is why I'm always insisting that we have to look at what the PPP is doing, and we have to understand what they're doing overtly and what they're doing covertly. And we have to educate our people on how they're being oppressed. And once we do that, then we will have them kicking and screaming as they did this weekend.
Very well. It's 6 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. Unless you have anything else to add to this apartheid discussion.
I thought you had more questions for me. But
yes, I have more questions, but not necessarily on the apartheid discussion. And that is why I ask if you want to add anything else on the apartheid discussion.
All right, go ahead with your questions.
Because I'm going to the fiasco in the Guyana police force.
Yes.
Right? Well, all of us have been following it, and we see these accusations upon accusations, allegations upon allegations. And lo and behold, up until now, no police protection has been provided for the whistleblower, as I want to call him. And as if to add insult to injury, I understand he's now back at work. And Ali has recently announced the RSS will be investigating. Your reactions to this matter up to now?
My reaction to this matter is the fact that the police force is trying to maneuver and manipulate, obviously on the direction of the government, is that we are winning. No police force in Guyana, in my long observation, the police force in Guyana would tell you go to hell. They can't do that now. They can't do that now. There are too many eyes. Our people are literate, more literate about police corruption. There are people like yourself who are prepared to stand up and talk and expose it. They have nowhere to hide. And I keep saying again, I heard you earlier talk about people getting into the streets and so on. I don't have a problem with that, except that I think what is missing, I guess that's what you want me to do, is to talk about the political impact of what's happening. What is our objective vis-a-vis the police force? For them to stop killing black. For them to stop being corrupt. And we have exposed their killing hand. We have exposed their corruption, and they have nowhere to hide. The PPP, the police force, right now under the PPP is weakened. That doesn't mean that they're not going to lash out. They're not going to keep doing what they have always done. But they're now doing it with the knowledge that tomorrow it will be exposed. It will be exposed. And so therefore, like on the question of race, on the question of policing, we have them on the run. We have this issue here with BASCOM and all of them and so on. You talk to people on the ground who been around police people, and they will tell you it's no, you know that. That's been going on forever. What is different now is that we have these daily programs, and we have leaders who are prepared to stand up and to bring to the public knowledge what the ordinary man in the street who know anything about the police force, been saying all the time. What 100 people knew, now tens of thousands of people know. The police is on the run. The leadership of the police is on the run. The political nexus between the politicians and the police is being exposed. We have taken this struggle in 2 years to a place that even we ourselves don't recognize sometimes how far we have taken it. I say again and again, you judge where you are in a struggle, not just by your own action, but by how your opponents react to you.
And so give the boss invite of the RSS to investigate in the murder of the Henry boys and their colossal failure, and then them being brought back here to deal with these allegations. Should we ascribe any seriousness to the government in wanting to get to the bottom of this? Yes, you have to
ascribe seriousness. They would not invite no RSS if people weren't on the streets with the Henry murder. They would not invite RSS now if people were not on top of this story. The problem is not the RSS, as you pointed out. If the RSS come here to Guyana and the PPP gives them what they want, the RSS will do its job. When the RSS came the last time, it wasn't the RSS was the problem. It's that the PPP didn't give the RSS what they needed. That's where the problem is. It's not the RSS is the problem. The fact that you forced them to bring the RSS is a victory. The RSS goes into other Caribbean country and help to move crimes. Because those governments give the RSS the tools to do its work. So the problem is not the RSS, my brother. The problem is the government. That it knows the RSS can come here. It doesn't give the RSS the tools. The RSS goes back home. That's it. They didn't go and bring the FBI or the Scotland Yard. Because what they can do to the RSS, they can't do to the Scotland Yard. So they want to go on record that, look, we brought in an international body. Because that's one of the demands, that the police force cannot be cleansed by itself. And so they go for the body that they can kick around. So the problem is not the RSS. It's the government.
So how do we get the desired result?
My brother, you sometimes ask me these questions. The desired results is already on its way. You've already get part of the desired results by them bringing the RSS. And I just said that they prefer to bring the RSS rather than bring the Scotland Yard or the FBI.
I hear you, as I usually say. I hear you loudly while you're not as loud. I hear you.
You know that there's several ways of struggle, Brother Daddy. And I will never, ever give the PPP the advantage of knowing what I will do tomorrow, of knowing what I will say tomorrow, of knowing what my tactic is going to be tomorrow. I will never give them that satisfaction. I will keep them guessing.
Very well.
So that's perhaps one of the little differences we have in terms of how we deal with these issues in public. Just as you are studying them, they are studying you. And I will never give them the satisfaction of knowing what I am proposing to do tomorrow. You know, you really, when you don't have state power, you have to have guerrilla power, and you have to use guerrilla tactics. They didn't know they were waking up, as somebody said in the papers, that the government media houses have failed the PPP because the Coffee 250 thing been out there all the time. And it's only 2 days before the forum that they recognize the danger from their standpoint of the thing. Coffee 250, in a sense, guerrilla them. Guerrilla them. It's only when Floyd Hinds pulled out that the PPP realized, because they feel that we're stupid. And they're looking for we on the road to go and lick me up on the head. And while they're looking for you on the road, you gotta be somewhere else. But Guinea border, that they yelling. Never let your opponents know what you're doing tomorrow. No option is off the table. The option of the street is on the table. The option of exposing the racist underbelly to the world intellectually is on the table. The option of the court is on the table. Never let your enemy in a struggle like this know where you're going tomorrow.
Appreciate it. And we're talking about struggle. I recognize Jack Dio said recently that despite Norton is saying no new list, no elections, he will turn up when the elections are gone.
That is the trap they always have for the PNC. As I said earlier, the ruling party wants to deal with the PNC alone. Remember, they didn't want Norton because they feared that Norton will not play to the old party script. Now that Norton is leader, what they're trying to do is to script Norton and to box him in to the party. Because you see, like I said, the party is not like Coffee 250. The party is looking to get votes. The party is looking to get into government. The party is going to be politically correct. And that's what they want. What they don't want is the party being part of a larger movement. And if Norton or the PNC will call for a clean voters list, and if they don't get it, they will still turn up, well, it is we who have to push them to the point that they will not turn up. That is the role of what they call the outliers. So they understand the limitations of the political party when it comes to guerrilla movement, when it comes to guerrilla struggle. They know that. They know that. As I said, they knew that they could go after Sister Manza and scare the daylight of her. She's new into politics. She's in a political party. And all they want is that never again should she speak about race in such a bold way. They know that. But they know they don't have the same lid on you or Nigel or Vincent or myself. They know that. So that's why they're always, every day they're calling us racists and all those kinds of things, hoping that someday we will get queasy and we will get tired and we will just get out of politics, or we'll just stop talking about race and so on and so forth. You know, the PPP is doing nothing. We are doing nothing that the PPP didn't do in 5 years. You know, in 5 years, the PPP got those Indians who voted for the coalition in 2011 and 2015. They get them to go back home to the PPP with a simple message. The coalition government is racist. They are knocking you all off from sugar nut. It's not an economic decision. It's a racial decision. They're doing nothing different from what we are doing. The difference is that they had enough Indian commentators who were supporting that message, that narrative. And our narrative, that what the PPP is doing, is essentially racist. It's confined only to a few of us, because generally black leaders tend, more than Indian leaders, black leaders tend to shy away from race. An Indian leader would talk about Marxism, he would talk about this, he would talk about that. Dr. Jagan would talk about Marxists, but in the 1950s, he said Indian people are second-class citizens in Guyana. So on top of his Marxism, he speaks about race. In those days, there's only one of our top leaders used to talk about race, Sidney King. And he was expelled from the PNC for that. There's a difference between how black leaders deal with race and how Indian leaders deal with race. Indian leaders are Marxists, but they don't leave out race from their Marxism. They talk about working class. Not the black working class is stupid to follow the PNC. The Indian working class is sensible to following us because we are sensible. That's one of our. So your answer about what Jack Dio said is part of their playbook. And, the PNC supporters have to ensure that Norton and the PNC don't do what Jack Dio is predicting will happen.
So then the struggle has to be on for the cleansing of the list and perhaps the introduction of biometrics.
Struggle has to be multidimensional. Multidimensional. Wherever you get a chance to kick them in there, wherever you do that. Today is the police, this afternoon is apartheid, tomorrow is corruption. You keep them all the time on their feet. Let them, you see, we cannot make our people believe that unless you have actual boots on the ground, nothing is happening. We cannot let our people believe there is one pathway to victory. You watch the PPP when it was in opposition. It used sugar, it used rice, it used electoral machinery, it used the courts, it used all dimensions of struggles. Those people did not have to put one boot on the ground. Not one boot. And they were able to kick us out of government. Throw us out of government without a boot on the ground. And so it's tactically an error to socialize our people to believe the only time that they should become active is when boots on the ground. And I'm afraid that sometimes we do that. And not recognizing that you can win the struggle or win a big part of the struggle without boots on the ground.
It's now 24 minutes to 24 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. I'll open up the lines if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
Good, so the lines are open. You can now call and let's talk with Dr. Hinds as we examine the issues, the rising apartheid state, invitation to the RSS to investigate the Guyana police force and the matter of GCOM and the requirement of a clean voters list. Let's talk. 6225933 is the number to call. Let's talk a thing. Let me start by seeing if there's any voice note as usual. No, there isn't any. No voice note. Good. Caller live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, good morning, Dr. Hinds.
Morning.
Dr. Hinds, I got a question for you. I listened to you and you make some valid points. Now, with RSS, now you said that around the world they go and they solve crimes or whatever, right? Now, what I want to know, my question to you is, why is it if the RSS is cognizant of their or respect their reputation, they came to Guyana one time and it was a failure. Why would they come back again to be labeled as failures? Is it because of the running after the money or what is it? That's my question to you, Dr. Hinds. Thank you.
The RSS is a CARICOM body, loosely. The RSS was set up in the 1980s in the wake of the Grenada Revolution. Remember, the small islands don't have armies. And so the RSS was set up as an army for the OECS countries. And it was part of the way of dealing with leftist upsurge and revolution in the Caribbean after the Grenada Revolution. Once the Cold War ended, the mandate of the RSS changed from an army to other things. They started to engage in hurricane disasters. They would go and help to clean up or things. Then they start to go in and try to help with solving that. So the mandate of the RSS broadened after the end of the Cold War. And like I said, it started out as an OECS machinery. And it is now loosely under the control of CARICOM. So it's a CARICOM body. So when a CARICOM member country requests it to come, then it has to come, because it operates under the auspices of CARICOM. So that's why it comes. It's no money or anything, right? It's part of the CARICOM responsibility.
Can it refuse to come on a matter of principle?
That will have to be a CARICOM decision.
Okay.
And CARICOM is, and in order for that to happen, you have to have consensus in CARICOM. That's how they make those decisions. And so if Guyana is going to say no, and all the other rest say yes, and then all the other rest say no, it still can't prevent it from coming. It's a CARICOM decision, and CARICOM operates in that way of consensus. And I don't understand why you all don't want them to come. Let them come and let the government expose itself a second time. It strengthens your hand to then say, bring somebody else. If you tell them don't come, then they will tell you, you all call for international thing, we bring international thing, and you all saying they don't come. Okay, let's move on. Let them come. I don't understand the logic of saying they shouldn't come. It strengthens your case that the government is not interested in justice. If you tell them don't come, then the government will say, look, you all call for something and now we bring it, you all not serious. You're taking them off the hook by saying that the RSS shouldn't come.
We're basically saying if they come, we know we ain't getting nothing.
Yes, but you also ought to say that if they don't come, you are letting the government off the hook.
Caller, your life. Good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. This question pertains specifically to Dr. Hinds. Given the last time when the RSS was here and their efforts were thwarted by the inaction of the government not being cooperative with them with respect to the resources. Now that we are asking for assistance and Catmashali decided to bring back RSS, what do you think will happen knowing that the PPP would not give them the resources as they did previously and nothing came out of it other than what the PPP expect to come out from the report? What would these people do should they come and ask for assistance and it's not given? Where would that lead us? Wouldn't it be tantamount to what happened before? And there is nothing but foregone conclusion, and PPP will make hay with that, as they did previously, fooling the masses that help came, and that is what they found? Or the people just put their tail between their legs and went back to their countries with nothing to report? Don't you think the same thing is going to happen again? Because that's what it seems it's tending towards with the likes of PPP, who I know would not give them the resources that is desired to get a fair and impartial investigation. This is a hard case. Given Anil, Jagdeo, and Ali's attitude, they would not. So I don't know how we can force them to give them the resources which those guys who would come would need. I don't know how we can force them to do that. You guys have a wonderful day and thank you.
Thank you for your call. Dr. Hinds?
I do not disagree with the caller that it's likely that they will not give them the resources as they did 2 years ago.
Call on the line.
But now it's 2 years later. The Americans are watching closely than they did 2 years ago. Hakeem Jeffries is on the case now. The Black Caucus is on the case. We have a new PNC leader. Our people are much more in tune now. The conditions have changed. They will do the same thing, but the effect will not be the same. Yes, the RSS will come. They will try this time to give the RSS. The last time they give them 0. This time they will, in the face of the exposure and in the face of the world watching them more than they were 2 years ago, they will give them 10% of what they ought to give them. But the fact is, the effect of them not cooperating with the RSS would be different. We now will have ammunition in our hands to press. If the RSS can come, we now want the Scotland Yard. We now want the FBI. We now want this. Our people are much more mobilized today than they were 2 years ago in the RSS. Our people are much more vigilant today. The situation has changed. So they will do the same thing, but they will be doing it in a changed situation. We didn't have the Black Caucus, we didn't have Hakeem Jeffries, we didn't have the Americans taking an active interest in governance 2 years ago. Our people were not as mobilized as we are today. As I said, we didn't have a PNC leader back then. You see? So the situation has changed. So you can do the same thing. All right? Fool me once, fool me twice. You try to fool me a third time, I must be a jackass. Or put more expansively, the people in the villages would say, water not carry me lap 2 times.
Caller Live, good morning. Thank you for holding.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. Good morning, everyone in the diaspora. I am elated, and we are elated to see that Copy 250 has heard the cry of many before who came and said that Guyana is indeed an apartheid state. There are factors and elements which properly qualify Guyana as a functional de jure apartheid state, as well as de facto, as Dr. Hinds pointed out. Apartheid in practice and apartheid in de jure. It is instructive to point out some facts that on August the 1st, or no, it was the Mashamani Day, I think was the last Mashamani, or this Mashamani, where President Biden wrote a letter to Irfan Ali. In that letter on Emancipation Day, President Biden pointed out that he's looking to see more cooperation in the area of inclusion. That's coming from the President of the United States. And he phrased it in terms of economic inclusion. Now, one of the elements of de jure and de facto apartheid is when a state uses the Constitution to economically exclude. Economic exclusion is an element of de jure or de facto apartheid. When the U.S. aid wrote its report about the hegemony, the East Indian private sector class hegemony of economic stockpiling of wealth, when Dr. Clive Thomas made the point about the East Indian PPP hegemony allocating special interest funds to the PPP. These are all facts, but I'm pointing to the fact that the U.S. aid also pointed out that recently, Congresswoman of Texas of the 18th District, Sheila Jackson Lee, said to Irfan Ali, Irfan, look, I see in you the potential of a lot of things. And she also said to him, I hope that you can work in a way of equality and respect for the people in Guyana. That's what she said to him. She said equality because she recognized that they were lacking on the effort of equality. They were dealing unequally. Equity and the unequal distribution of wealth in a state is a de jure and de facto exercising of apartheid by state power. The PPP are properly in exercising an apartheid state. And I don't have the time to itemize the additional facts. So I'm glad that Dr. Hinds is with us and he can bring an academical approach to it and let him know and let Nandalal be properly served. Now with regards, so it's also instructive to say that the mere fact that the show had to be postponed, that Coffee 50 had to postpone that at the behest of the letter that was written by the PPP government shows the duress, the intimidation, the coercion of an apartheid exercising its muscle. That in itself is indicative of how apartheid states influence and intimidate groups and peoples. So there are several instances of we are properly in an apartheid state. Now, the Bacchus case, not the Bacchus case, but the Paper Shorts case. I hope that Attorney Nigel Hughes sees the fact that Roger Khan is properly part of Paper Shorts case. Let me show you how. We are focusing on paper shorts, but keep in mind, and we're not focusing so much on Roger Khan. Roger Khan is properly part, and he was probably, and I am willing to believe that he was the intended target of the paper shorts assassination. Had Roger Khan stepped out 3 seconds earlier, he would have been lying next to paper shorts. So Roger Khan is as equal as a victim of this. Now, what's my point? Is that Roger Khan has laid sufficient evidence in the New York courts, which must be resurrected and tied to this paper shorts case. Whether we see it or we acknowledge it, it's begging to be, the connections are begging to be made, to be connected. So if we are looking for a nexus, the nexus is there. It's not like I'm trying to bring Roger Khan into the case. Roger Khan is properly part of the paper shorts case. By tying the obvious links, we will be able to reiterate the entire issue for extrajudicial killings, and the evidence is already there. We need to go to the United Nations on this issue because it's a United Nations issue. It's a Guyanese issue, yes, but it's already, and it already has been a United Nations issue. So they may charge, what's his name tomorrow, speculatively, BASCOM. Well, that's their card. They have to play that card. The issue is, would Nigel Hughes play the same card? If I were Nigel Hughes, I would have taken him to court yesterday. Why wait? Anyway, that's my contributions for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for calling.
I think Brother Coffee made some salient points, and one of the points he made there when he said, the very act of trying to intimidate Coffee is itself an act of how apartheid works. Apartheid, the word apartheid means apartness. It is the opposite of inclusiveness. So when we charge, when the Americans say, when we say the PPP is not being inclusive in its governance, we are in effect saying they are governing by apartness, which is what apartheid means. And that is why I'm saying, and Kofi is making the point, he's saying, while the laws of Guyana are themselves not laws of apartheid, the manner in which the laws have been manipulated is being done in an apartheid way. So he's talking about the method of governance being apartheid, and these are very important points to be made. And sometimes we poo-poo where our intellectual ability to really skin up the PPP. You know, the Indian commentators in the PPP never acknowledged that Indian people rioted during the last election ever. I was on that program with Freddie Kissoon. He poo-pooed it. He said, oh, you talking about stone in a bus? That's not violence. Here I want our viewers and listeners to listen to this. After the PNC rigging attempt with Mingo staying dead sheets, the worm turned, and PPP supporters on West Bobis came onto the public road and rioted. Sadly, some school children were injured when they stoned a school bus with David Granger emblazoned on its side. That's coming from Guyana Times. That's coming from Guyana Times. For the first time, the PPP media have admitted that Indian people rioted. And it's coming from Guyana Times. And people know who's in charge of the editorial story over Guyana Times. They would not admit that if we did not force them to. They saw what a jackass Kissoon made himself of by saying, oh, Indian people didn't riot, they just stone a bus. Now they're forced to say Indian people rioted. This is the first time you've heard it from any of the PPP mouthpieces, including the so-called independent media. None of them talk about PPP rioting and injuring black people children. So I'm saying, I know our people don't have time to go read in Guyana Times and think I got to read it for them. And recognize when we squeeze in their wherever, that what they did not admit in 2 years, they're now admitted. You know why? Because they realize we are closing in on them. They never admitted in 2 years. But now they hear that we are moving the struggle to apartheid and that black people can identify with the system of apartheid and that their propaganda is going to be less and less impactful. They are beginning now to admit some truths. Like I said, I don't want black people to be spending their time going and reading every little thing they write. That is the job for us. But when we come onto this program, or these programs, we are armed with every little manipulation they're doing. I rest my case.
Thank you for calling, calling your life.
Yeah, good morning. Now with this thing with coffee 250, I am sorry to hear that. And I think that we, as a body, we should stop accepting the PPP and style regime to push our buttons. Because if us come to Guyana Day celebrations, nobody going to stop. This country is a country of 6 races, and everybody got their own race to look into. And the other when the PNC was in power for 28 plus 3.5 years, we never ever dictate the other races on how they must worship and what they must do. And I think that we as Africans should stop allowing the ilks of the PPP to hamper whatever we want to do. The world has dedicated a decade of African people. Now imagine the government, the vice president, who attacked apology. Apology is African, and he should not be in apology affairs. We should be the people to bring down apology, not Barajagio. Then the next thing is with the police top brass, who are now attacking Mr. Nigel Hughes. And I know that Nigel Hughes will fix them in the place, because you cannot look to attack the credibility of a lawyer in Nigel Hughes standing. That means quite clearly the police eyes really passing, and about the police that is there, I hope that he could be protected by I don't know whom. But I feel that his case needs outside intervention to protect him. Because if he don't get that, he could pass under the bridge like other informants. And now all of a sudden, the police is trying to cite him for cyber crimes. What the police put out there in those types of things they call press conference, that is a part of cybercrime. Last night I listened to the man who first said that he was the person who took him into the police station.
And then he trying now to swing his mouth. Just like the Quindam Bacchus case. But people, we got to stand up and look to see what is going on. And don't let the installed regime stifle Africans in this country. We came here. We came and we met the Amerindans. The white people brought us here. So we were here before all the rest of them. And if we did not fight to be emancipated and free, none of them would not have been here. Because we would have been walking here all the time. So the Indians should at least, good people, should be thankful that we decided to fight for emancipation, thus giving them a place to come, and now trying to push us down in the doldrums. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The caller there is on the point as usual, Sister Rhonda. The one thing is when she said they push our buttons. No, we push their buttons. When we sat down in Coffee 250 and we agreed on that topic, we knew that we were going to push their buttons. We probably didn't realize how hard we were going to push them, but it's we pushing their buttons. They're not pushing their buttons. They're reacting to us. And they're reacting to us like crazy people. We pushing their buttons.
Call it live.
Okay. Could I speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to mention about the part which is critical. We must go to Wales State whereby you have this agency, NISIL, where there were leases that issued to numerous African Guyanese by the APNU AFC. And what this current government did when they came in is that, what we noticed is that they block you from getting interested because most of the bridges are burned. So Africans that have farmland that was issued by APNU AFC to NISIL, they cannot access the land. They plant farms, some cattle, and other crops down there. It's not only happened there up in Kuru. The roads are bad. And in number 43, Jump Up Village Quarantine, it drained in the farmland and our dog. Recently, I went by Maro, and the government gets stone and sand and cement, even things growing over those stone, and the people, and African people, are suffering in Maro area. So it's a serious thing happening in Wales, that people cannot access the land, and they've been denied from accessing the land. And they have a security guard, I think it's RK, that guard in the garden, and you can't even get close to the gate. So we got to focus on Wales where the music gas is show, and people have valid leaves that are registered in court and can't even access the land. And NISIL is not permitting them even to access the land. And they give you notice to quit to some, issue notice to quit, and then they call some notice to quit to most Indian people in some area, and not so much the black. It's just a few. And the case the Chief Justice already ruled concerning that matter, and that's a critical case that come. But even then, they not recognize all other persons, even though some get the order from the court, and not recognize the others. They said they got to go and get order court individually before they could access the land. So that is apartheid. Black is being denied economic power. Now put another instance in Peter Hall, where most of the Indians get lands at Peter Hall, right, on the APNU, but the blacks that get lands that be denied to do anything on the land, and there have been criminal charges against some black people there. And that is another apartheid. And the road structure, if you look at the new road, they try to take away lands from black people in the same area based on the plans that was issued then from NISIL under coalition, and they try to change up the land, but conspiring with the big ones in lands and surveys to do that. So there's another form of apartheid happening in respect to land. So economics of PFPs is focusing heavily on land to deprive black people of land, and so that they cannot strive economically. And that is 100% apartheid act and activity or omission to by them. So we have to look at it more seriously and more in deep in terms of land that is being affected by black people by the PPP. And that's affecting our strive economically, and we must fight it in all its forms. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for that information too.
And you see where we're winning? That is what the PPP fears. That our people will now say, but wait a minute. This land thing here, this is apartheid. This here is apartheid. That's what they fear. They fear apartheid on the lips of our people. That's what they fear. That's why you know you are winning. That's why they know you're winning. And you have to let them know that you know you're winning. We have to get our people into knowing that you're not only winning when you put the boots on the streets. That's bad socialization. You are winning because they fear that people will now look at their condition and they will say, this is apartheid. And they understand that the concept of apartheid, it's deep in the black psyche. They understand that. And so, brothers and sisters, we have scored perhaps the biggest victory to date.
Thank you, Father, your life.
Yes, good morning, brothers. About the symposium that or the activity that was recently brought forward from its original date. I would agree with Dr. Hinds that is benefit the entire thing because it makes more people aware of it. Because I've spoken to many people who did not know about those two organizations, and I think a lot of people know about it now, and they know about that it's coming up this weekend coming up here. So I would agree with Dr. Hinds that's a plus for us, and I just want to encourage people to pay attention to these programs here. We will all learn a lot. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother. I didn't want to give away the thing. It was tactical on our part to postpone it for me. Everybody knows now who's Coffee 250. Everybody knows now about apartheid. Let it simmer. Let it simmer for a week. Let it simmer for a week. Look, we not stupid. We understand tactics, brothers and sisters. We understand tactics. We don't always get it right. But in this instance, the postponement for a week is tactical. It's not cowardice. Cowardice is if we had said we call off the conference or we change in the topic. No, you give us some free advertising. You gave us some free advertising. You have now helped our people to understand they got some people who, while you are sleeping, we are plotting to take the struggle to the next level. And that's what we did. And they've done us a wonderful favor, Mr. Nandalal. You've given us a wonderful favor by defending your government. That's what we want you to do. But your defense is so fragile and facile that we can kick it out of the court. Come this weekend, we're going to be rocking. We're going to be rocking like we do always. Rocking in the face. Torment them till the end of their time. I just want to add and to say to our people, stay woke. And when you have a coin, don't look at the side of the coin only that your enemy occupies. Look at your side of the coin. Look at your side of the coin. If you know you're winning, when you put the boots on the ground, those boots will be sharper than any steel because you know that you're winning. You're going there with the boots on the ground, with a whole set of confidence. You see what the court said yesterday? They act bad, but the court invoke the thesis, as they say, that you have to have this thing. So when you appeal the case, and I hope the opposition, I hope they appeal that case with the Chief Justice ruling there yesterday. I hope they appeal it because she gave them something to appeal. She's saying that, look, this thing is wrong, but I invoke a doctrine to make it right. Well, the higher court will have to say whether she was right or wrong. And then we are winning. We are winning. The Chief Justice said the thing was wrong, but this doctrine make it right. It makes your appeal so much easier. We are winning. We are winning, and I'm not crazy. We are winning.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds. It's now a minute past the 9 o'clock hour, and this is where we'll take a wrap. You're on tonight for Politics 101. At what time and who are the guests?
Well, Politics 101 comes on, the interviews at 7, and we come on 5-10 minutes earlier to warm up, but the interview begins at 7, and I'm having Leland Saul on tonight, former CEO at the Central Housing and Planning, who have now come onto the radar of the PPP. Freddie Kissoon went touring to him the other day, and he's coming to talk. He's coming to tell his side. He's coming to answer. We got to answer these people. And that's what we'll be doing tonight. Leland Saul on tonight. Politics 101, where it's happening at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, and thank you, viewers. Do join me tomorrow morning, same place, same time, for another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. And tomorrow we're going to be wheeling in, as we like to say, Guyanese. We're going to wheeling into a number of issues. And of course, share the word. Share the word. Share the word. And so that tomorrow when I come here, we're going to be talking to 1 billion people. Right? We don't want 500 million, we want 1 billion. So prepare, start to share the word, and encourage others to join the program tomorrow morning. And I'll see you then.